What's up, everyone? Welcome to our weekly live in our private Facebook group. I hope that you guys have been enjoying these and getting a lot out of them. And all the videos get saved here. So if you want to go back and rewatch any of the old ones, they're all available for you along with the rest of our resources. So take advantage of it. It's free and there's a lot of it. So make sure you take advantage. Also, we had a wonderful question by a patient, a great patient the other day, where she was asking about, different misconceptions about nutrition and health and stuff like that. And so we're going to be recording a video just on those, which I think you guys will really enjoy as well. So for today's topic, it is your immunity tank running on empty? And if you saw the email that we sent out earlier this week, if you're not on our list, get on it. We send out good stuff every week. And I talked about your immune system and your immune reserves functioning very similar to a car and the gas tank. And if you're driving your car and your gas tank is 100% full or 7% full, the car is going to run exactly the same way. And then once you run out of gas, very quickly you go from doing fine to just being completely not able to run and your engine shuts off. And our bodies work very similarly. So what happens is people will run themselves ragged. They're not getting enough sleep. They're stressed out like crazy. And they call themselves, if you're a real driven person, you're just a hard charger. And there's a badge of honor of being able to push through those types of things. And what happens is our body starts to wear down. And then eventually we wake up one day and it feels like we've hit a brick wall and we're sick. Or some people, they end up getting diagnosed with cancer, or they end up with a heart attack. And they think that these things came out of nowhere, but they don't. And so we want to talk about how do we fill up our immunity tank on a regular basis. And I want to share an inspirational story with you guys to kind of set the tone and put perspective. And this is one of my favorite stories of all time. It's the story of the Mexican Fisherman by Courtney Carver. An American investment banker was at the pier of a small coastal Mexican village when a small boat with just one fisherman docked. Inside the small boat were several large yellowfin tuna. The American complimented the Mexican on the quality of his fish and asked how long it took to catch them. The Mexican replied, "Only a little while." The American then asked why didn't he stay out longer and catch more fish. The Mexican said he had enough to support his family's immediate needs. The American then asked, "But what do you do with the rest of your time?" The Mexican fisherman said, "I sleep late, fish a little, play with my children, take siestas with my wife, Maria, stroll into the village each evening where I sip wine and play the guitar with my amigos. I have a full and busy life." The American scoffed, "I am a Harvard MBA and could help you. You should spend more time fishing, and with the proceeds, you could buy a bigger boat. With the proceeds from the bigger boat, you could buy several boats. Eventually, you would have a fleet of fishing boats. Instead of selling your catch to a middleman, you would sell directly to the processor, eventually opening up your own cannery. You would control the product, the processing, and the distribution. You would need to leave this small coasting fishing village and move to Mexico City, then LA, and eventually New York City, where you'll run your expanding enterprise." The Mexican fisherman asked, "But how long will all this take?" To which the American replied, 15 to 20 years. "But then what?" asked the Mexican. The American laughed and said, "That's the best part. When the time is right, you would announce an IPO and sell your company stock to the public and become very rich. You would make millions." The fisherman asked, "Millions? But then what?" The American said, "Then you would retire, move to a small coastal fishing village where you would sleep late, fish a little, play with your kids, take siestas with your wife, stroll to the village in the evenings where you would sip wine and play your guitar with your amigos." And the lesson of this story, especially as someone like myself who's such a type A personality, is the lesson is that we really have to guard our top priorities with a clear and impenetrable barrier. But I want to take some of the pressure off you as well. It isn't about doing all these things perfectly all the time. It's about doing them well most of the time, but always having checks and balances in place. And if you're going to work, and if you're going to work really hard, I know this is a luxury for some people. For some of you that might be listening to this, or you might know people, they don't have the option to go back and find a different job and do what they love. They have to work hard and doing something they don't like to be able to provide for their family. And I think that that's incredibly important, and it's inspirational to me that people would work so hard for their families. But if you do have the ability to, make sure that you're doing something you love. And sometimes that means scaling back a little bit. Like, you know, you talk to people all the time that are working 14 hours a day, 12, 14 hours a day at a job that they hate to afford a huge expensive home that they don't get to enjoy, while they're spending time in a job that takes them away from the things they're working for, which is for their family and to be able to enjoy their life. So maybe it would be nice to scale back a little bit, or to maybe do a different job. Maybe it doesn't pay as much, but you're doing something that you love rather than something that you hate. And the reason why I bring all of this up is because all of this stuff has an effect on your immune system. When you're stressed out, when you're working ridiculously long hours, that doing something you don't enjoy, and you're not getting enough sleep, and you're not taking care of yourself, your tank is starting to run low. And eventually, once that tank is empty, you're done. Like, if your tank is low, you can fill it up. But if your tank runs on empty, you're done. And so it's incredibly important that we have a way also to track these things. And so what can we use as proxies for our immune system? One of them is from the video last week, which is looking at your HRV. So a high HRV, robust immune system. Low HRV, your body is running on fumes. And so you can use that as a way to kind of figure out, is it an off day? Do you need to work harder at it? Do you need to work less at it? Do you need to take a couple of days off? Do you need to ramp things up? And so it's really important that we have some of these proxies. So what are some other proxies besides HRV? Another one is sleep. So that's one of the reasons why I do recommend either something like the Whoop or the Aura Ring, or I think there's like the BioStrap, or you can use the Garmin or an Apple Watch. All of those things, they monitor your sleep. And so making sure that you're monitoring your sleep each night to see, are you getting enough deep sleep? Are you getting enough REM sleep? The third thing is looking at inflammation. So that's not really something that you can kind of just test easily. That's more of a blood test, but looking at CRP, looking at homocysteine, looking at these markers for inflammation throughout your body. If you're inflamed, if you have higher inflammation, your immune system is suffering. Another big influence on the immune system is your vitamin D status. Through a company like Everlywell, for under 50 bucks, I think 30 something bucks, you can usually find a coupon code. And I think I even have one. If you want to message me, I'm happy to share it with you. Making sure that you're having adequate vitamin D. With COVID, they found not necessarily a causal relationship, but a very high correlation with people with low vitamin D levels and the severity of the effect from COVID-19. And so looking at your vitamin D levels is incredibly important. Looking at your omega-3 status. So if you're not eating a lot of fish and you're not taking a fish oil supplement, looking at what is your omega-3 status. And that, a company like Omega Quant, it's like 50 bucks. And they'll send you a kit at home. You send it back in and they'll test your cellular omega-3 status in the cell membranes of your cells. And you want to be between 8 and 12%. I had a patient recently who was 3%, and he was dealing with overall inflammation and pain syndromes all over. And so we were like, we got to get your omega-3 status up. If it's during the winter time or you're not getting enough sun, then taking something like a cod liver oil is really important, because not only are you getting your omega-3s, but you're also getting vitamin A and vitamin D in its active form in there. Another thing that you want to look at is, potentially you can do this through a blood test as well, is your cortisol levels. If you're spiking your cortisol, that means that it's indicating that you have a very high level of stress going on. And when your cortisol is high, it shuts down your immune system. Another one, your glutathione. You can test this, but glutathione is what's known as an endogenous antioxidant, meaning some antioxidants, your body doesn't produce. You have to actually consume it in order to get it. But when it's an endogenous antioxidant, your body actually produces it. So how do we ramp up our body's ability to produce glutathione? We have to make sure that we're getting the precursors for it and stressing the body in a healthy way. So one of the ways of that is exercise. Exercise is a great way to boost glutathione levels. Whey protein, actually. Whey protein, if you're not sensitive to whey or to dairy, whey protein is another way that it helps your body to naturally increase glutathione levels. And sulfur-rich foods. So those are like your brassica vegetables. You have your cauliflower, broccoli, those types of things, onions, garlic. Now, if you're sensitive to those things, you have to find other ways to get your glutathione. Some people don't do well with those vegetables, but you can still get glutathione from these other things as well. Another thing, an essential amino acid, methionine, which is found in meat, is another precursor for creating glutathione. So that's really important, increasing your endogenous antioxidant levels. Also, your weight is another component. The higher your level of weight, the more fat that you have, the lower your immune system. So we really got to look at getting into a caloric deficit with high quality foods and getting the weight down. And then last, but certainly not least, is when you are subluxated. So if you are subluxated, that is absolutely going to affect that neuroendocrine immune axis. When you're subluxated, you don't have good parasympathetic, vagal mediated response in the body. And that can absolutely have an effect on your immune system and put you in a compromised state. And so it goes back to this, the chiropractic lifestyle, making sure that your spine and nerve system is staying clear and making sure that you're incorporating all of these other healthy habits and behaviors to support that. And I get that in some of these workshops, there is a little bit of overlap in things, and I repeat things. But until you're doing things perfectly, until you're doing all of these things to the way that you should, use this as an opportunity to guide you in continually improving yourself. So continually working on incorporating these things more and more, and use this more as a checks and balances system, so that way you can keep moving your life in the right direction. So thank you guys so much for tuning in today. As always, if you have any questions, post them below. I'm checking this on a regular basis to see if we have any questions, and share this with someone you care about. This is really important stuff, especially in today's day and age where people are becoming so unhealthy and suffering so much from chronic disease. So thanks so much, guys. Take care of yourselves, and we'll see you soon.